I want to tell you what I found, but first I need to tell you what I did, because the order matters, and I've been accused before of burying the thing that explains everything. I went in on Tuesday. I know I said I didn't know if I was going to. I know that. But I've been a dispatcher for 11 years, and I've never not shown up for a shift, and whatever happened to me in that building, I wasn't going to let it take that too. So I went in. I worked the shift. I kept my voice recorder running in my front shirt pocket the whole 8 hours. Nothing happened, or nothing that I noticed. The calls came in normal. I logged them. I dispatched. I signed out at 6 in the morning, and the physical log had my usual entries, and I remembered all of it. I drove home, slept, woke up, and checked the system. Full logs. Every call time-stamped and documented. For about 12 hours, I thought maybe it had been a one-time thing, a glitch. Something I would never be able to explain, but also never have to live through again. Then I went back to work on Thursday, and Derek from IT was waiting for me at the entrance. He didn't look like a man who had good news. Derek is probably 26, 27. Young enough that he still gets nervous, delivering information to people who are older than him. You can see him working out how to say things before he says them. He asked if we could talk somewhere private. We went to the small conference room off the main hallway, the one nobody uses unless there's a formal review. He had a printout with him. He set it on the table and turned it to face me. It was a graph. Horizontal axis was time, midnight to 6 a.m. Vertical axis was labeled System Status Ping, automated. The line was flat and green all the way across with one exception. At the 3:17 mark, the line dipped, not all the way to 0, partway down, then back up, over the span of 11 seconds. I'd already known about the off-cycle ping from our last conversation. What I hadn't known was what Derek found when he pulled the metadata behind that dip. He said, during those 11 seconds, the system logged a second active session. I asked him what that meant. He said it meant the dispatch console showed 2 operators logged in simultaneously. My credentials, which had been active since 10 p.m., and a second set of credentials that appeared at 3:17 and disappeared 11 seconds later. I asked whose credentials. He looked at the table for a moment. Then he said, "That's the part I can't tell you." I asked if he meant he didn't know or he wasn't allowed to say. He said, "I mean, the credentials don't match any active or inactive employee in our system. The username exists. The login was authenticated, but there's no personnel record attached to it. No hire date, no department, no access level. It's just a string of characters that the system accepted as valid." I sat with that for a moment. I said, "How does that happen?" He said, "It doesn't. That's why I'm telling you." I went home that night and I listened to the voice recorder from Tuesday's shift. 8 hours of audio. I fast-forwarded through most of it. Calls coming in, my responses, radio dispatches, the ordinary sounds of a quiet overnight. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. I was listening for gaps. There weren't any. The audio was continuous. Nothing cut out, nothing sounded wrong. I listened to myself work for 8 hours and everything was exactly what it should have been. Except, at 3:16 a.m., 1 minute before the ping, I took a call. I remember this call. A man reporting a noise complaint, a neighbor's dog. I logged it, sent a patrol unit, standard handling. 2 minutes start to finish. I remember it. On the recording, that's not what happened. On the recording, I answered the call at 3:16. I said my standard greeting, and then for 43 seconds I said nothing. The caller said nothing. There was no dog barking in the background, no ambient noise, nothing to indicate anyone was there at all. Just open line. 43 seconds of it. Then my voice on the recording said, "Confirmed. Logging it." And the call ended. I logged a noise complaint at 3:16 a.m. The log entry exists. It matches what I remember. But what I remember didn't happen. What happened was 43 seconds of silence and 2 words that don't belong to any protocol I've ever used. I've listened to that section of the recording 11 times. It's my voice. The cadence is mine. The flat delivery. Even the slight exhale before I speak that I've apparently had my whole career without realizing it. It's me. I don't remember saying it. I started pulling public records the following morning. Incident reports, scanner archives, anything from that Tuesday that might tell me what actually moved through this county between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. This took most of a day. I want to be clear that none of this was private information. Incident reports are public record. Scanner traffic gets archived by hobbyists, and I found 2 separate sites that log our county's frequencies going back several years. I wasn't accessing anything I shouldn't have been. Here's what I found. There were calls that night. Not 0, not a quiet Tuesday. The scanner logs show radio traffic from our center's frequencies across at least 9 separate incidents during my shift. 9 incidents that I apparently dispatched, that responding units apparently handled, that generated no log entries in our system and no incident reports in the police or fire records. 9 calls that on paper did not happen, but on the scanner archive my voice is there. Calm, procedural, exactly the way I sound on any other shift, dispatching units to addresses, confirming responses, closing out incidents. 8 hours of work, preserved in a hobbyist's archive on a website I'd never heard of before last week that contradicts everything the official record says. I downloaded the audio. I've been listening to it in pieces because listening to myself do a job I can't remember is an experience I can only take in small amounts. 8 of the 9 calls are ordinary. A fender bender, a welfare check, a report of someone screaming, resolved on arrival as a television left on loud. The kind of night I've worked 100 times. The 9th call is different. It comes in at 3:14 a.m., 2 minutes before the logging anomaly. The caller doesn't give a location, doesn't give a name, doesn't describe an emergency. The caller says one sentence and then stays on the line. The sentence is, "It's going to hold for another week." On the recording, I respond without any hesitation. No clarifying questions, no request for location, none of the standard protocol I would use with a confused or non-responsive caller. I just say, "Copy that, Tuesday." And then the line stays open for 90 seconds, both of us breathing until the caller hangs up. 30 seconds later is the call I remember. The dog. The noise complaint. The call that, on my recorder, was 43 seconds of silence and confirmed, logging it. I've constructed several explanations for what "it's going to hold for another week" might mean. Equipment, infrastructure, a maintenance schedule of some kind. 2 people from the same utility or the same agency checking in on something routine using shorthand I'm not familiar with. None of those explanations account for why I have no memory of that call. None of them account for the second login. None of them account for the fact that when I said Tuesday, I said it the way you'd confirm an appointment. I want to tell you about Roland. I mentioned the officer who told me to leave it alone. The one who said, "Then you know," and walked away. I've been trying to get to him for 2 weeks. His name is Roland. He works Tuesday overnight patrol in our coverage area, has for about 6 years, which means our shifts have overlapped hundreds of times. We're not friends exactly, but we know each other the way, people you work adjacent to for years. We've eaten food from the same vending machines at 4 in the morning. I know he has a daughter named after a river. 2 weeks of him being unavailable, off route, walking a different direction. Yesterday I stopped trying to be subtle about it. I waited in the parking lot. He came out at end of shift and he saw me and he stopped. Just stopped walking and looked at me from about 20 feet away, like he was measuring something. I said, "I know you know something. I'm not asking you to explain it. I just need to know if I'm in danger." He walked over. He stood close enough that no one else could have heard him. He said, "Not the way you mean." I asked what that meant. He said, "Marcus, the calls got handled. Nobody got hurt. The county didn't burn down." That last part, the county didn't burn down. That's what I'd written in my first post, word for word. I hadn't spoken to Roland since before I wrote it. I hadn't spoken to anyone who would have told him. I stared at him. He said, "There are shifts that get eaten. It's been happening here a long time. Longer than either of us has worked here. And the people who've tried to dig into it." He stopped. Started again. "Nobody got hurt, Marcus. That's what you need to hold on to. Just let the Tuesday shifts run and let the logs be what they are, and do not go looking for the edge of it." I said, "How do you know what I wrote?" He looked at me for a long time. He said, "I didn't read it." Then he got in his car and drove away. I'm not going to tell you I have answers. I don't. What I have is this: a second login that matches no employee. A call I made that I can't remember making. 9 incidents that exist only in a hobbyist's archive. A pattern of eaten shifts that Roland says goes back further than either of us. And an officer who quoted me verbatim from something he says he never read. What I keep coming back to is the 317 ping. That 11-second window. Everything that's wrong with all of this seems to pass through that window. The second login appears at 3:17. The call I don't remember is at 3:14, 3 minutes before it. On the scanner I say Tuesday at 3:14 like I'm confirming something. And then 3 minutes later something authenticates into the system with credentials that shouldn't exist, stays 11 seconds, and leaves. 3 minutes and 11 seconds. Whatever that is, whatever it's doing, it's fast. I've thought about going above Randall. I've thought about the scanner archive and whether I should send it to someone. A journalist, a county supervisor, someone outside the building who might have the access and the reason to pull on this without the same walls I keep hitting. What stops me every time is Roland's face in that parking lot. Not scared, not threatening. Resigned, maybe. The face of a man who made a decision a long time ago and has been living inside it ever since. He told me nobody got hurt. He said it the way I say things I need the caller to believe more than I believe them myself. I don't know if that's reassuring or the worst thing I've ever heard. I go back in on Tuesday. I'll have the recorder, I'll have the scanner archive pulled up on my phone, and this time I'm going to be awake at 3:14. I'm going to pick up that call and I'm going to know what I say.